This video is going to be an interesting collection of thoughts and theories and ideas that I have relating to ayahuasca, entheogens, and the Tartaria, the ancient buildings, the ancient civilization. In this book, I am going to read from called The Antipodes of the Mind, Charting the Phenomenology of the Ayahuasca Experience by Benny Shanon. It's a book that I got a long time ago, probably about 20 years ago when I was into researching all this stuff. And again, I don't recommend anything that anyone's not ready for. I'm not a doctor, I'm not a shaman or anything like this. Do what you are capable of and what you can. And again, these things are terrifying. They're like jumping out of a building, jumping out of a plane, and not knowing what's going to happen. So I am also fearful of a lot of these experiences. However, I realize how important they are. And this guy right here, whose art I am going to show, is not afraid at all. And it's because of the culture they grow up in. And I believe that's more in touch with the ancient culture than me and my modern self. Pablo Amaringo, a true master artist, absolutely incredible visionary, and you definitely look him up. You've probably seen him before as well, but his ayahuasca visions that he comes back with and draws are spectacular. And I do believe that there is a key, that these entheogens are here to show us something spectacular. They're there to heal. A lot of psychology and science is seeing the benefits in their mental abilities to heal, change people's paths from depression and addiction and PTSD to something absolutely magical, beyond possibility, beyond fathomability. And I won't share my experiences directly, but they've been spectacular. And I, again, can't do it frequently. You could never. I'm actually extremely rare and very few times, but what those few times showed me was I'll never forget, ever, not for a second. And it leads to an unraveling of the potential that exists. And I do believe there is, again, a connection to that realm in the way the ancient buildings were, and even just the creators of those buildings. I have a feeling that the Egyptians, every culture, every single ancient culture used mushrooms and different experiences to tap into that realm, experience it like it was just, again, connected with this one, a very important realm. It wasn't taboo, it wasn't illegal. It was the way it was. It was probably where they learned everything: language, music, art, farming, domestication of animals, all these things. Look at this artwork that this guy portrays and the visions he shows, and they are real. And that spectrum that you see in those realms, and same with closed-eye visuals when you're just totally normal and not on anything, and just sleeping and dreaming. The colors even in the dream state are more amazing and ethereal and magical than they are in reality when you're in an intense dream and in that world. And it just leads to something spectacular. I don't know exactly what. I'm, again, just theorizing, but it is something that, it's not supposed to be feared. It's supposed to be embraced when the time needs it. It's very much connected to synchronicity and the perfection of the universe, and it leads people to it when the time is right. And if the people aren't ready, or it's not time for them, then you won't do it. Don't take any of this from me. Do all the research on yourself. That's why I read a ton of books when I was growing up, and just found it very fascinating because the descriptions are spectacular. But either way, in connection to them, Tartaria, these entheogenic realms that the Egyptians, everyone, the Romans were all into, and I think there's a connection here. So I want to read, this is from page 123 of Benny Shanon's book. It says, "The Cultural World," this section. Ayahuasca belongs to the Amazonian rainforest, but my data reveal that, apart from beings and animals, the items that feature most frequently in the visions this brew produces pertain to culture, cities and architectural complexes, palaces and temples, and various works of art and precious objects. All are very common for both me and the different groups of my informants. Indeed, palaces and objects of art and magic are, for some, the items most commonly seen in the visions. A perusal of the anthropological literature reveals that items pertaining to culture are also common in visions reported by indigenous persons. Buildings. Buildings appear very frequently in the visions. Most of them are magnificent. Most notable are, on the one hand, palaces and other palatial complexes, and on the other hand, temples and religious sites. Castles, mansions, and archaeological ruins are also common. Often the palaces and temples seen are made out of gold, crystal, and precious stones. Here, for instance, are two descriptions taken from Polari, book in 1984. I found myself in the salon of a castle illuminated by torches. The salon was oval, slightly oblong, with semicircular doors placed at regular intervals. At the same time, I saw an atrium situated in front of the principal wall in the hall of the throne. Thousands of tunnels, galleries, corridors, secret doors, staircases, inclined planes, crisscrossed in a composition akin to one of Escher's. These led to sumptuous palaces, lofty halls, sarcophagi, caverns, or temples. In some of these were sentinels appearing as medieval figures. Now, I'm going to pause the book for a second and say, are these connections, are these visions from this beyond the realm? Is this their way of communicating with us, getting us into a state where our bodies are capable of receiving and then transmitting the visions that we need? It's just all about a way to connect them to maybe what we are all doing in this community with this research. There's definitely something here, or maybe even traveling back in time, because I do believe you can, in your mind, travel back in time to any moment, really, that exists within the noosphere. I'm very convinced of that. So all of these are possible. I'm not sure what the truth is and what the connection is, but again, I've always thought that from Mount Meru come different spores in mountains that maybe even be what the Aurora Borealis is. Different spores. I've read that in different Hollow Earth-like books. Could be emissions coming from that inside there. Who knows? Take all of this into consideration. But I believe these visions are showing something, and they're connected to something great, and they're leading us to something great, showing us what has been or maybe what still is beyond our realm, which we need to explore. Here we go. Continues. I myself have seen places and temples many times. As described in the previous chapter, the only time I consumed ayahuasca in the midst of the virgin Amazonian forest, I saw a whole sequence of palatial and regal scenes. I hoped to get a glimpse of the mysteries of the Amazonian jungle, but instead I saw palaces and royalty from different cultures on both sides of the Atlantic. The most impressive of these were 2 visits to the throne hall of an Egyptian pharaoh. In real life, I have been to many of the famous archaeological sites in Egypt, and I have also visited the Egyptian galleries of many museums, but what I saw in this and other visions surpassed them all. The Egyptian palaces revealed to me in my ayahuasca visions appeared to be totally new and full of life, as if they had just been constructed. Like Polari, on many occasions I saw corridors, one hall opening into another, marvelous wall paintings, sculptures, and reliefs. Architectural details that especially impressed me included sculpted marble colonnades in the form of white elephants, staircases adorned with golden lions, and finely carved gilded wooded ceilings. Several times I saw most beautiful painted tiles. In the reports of my informants, mosaics appear frequently. An example was described in Chapter 6 when serial images were discussed. This book is great. It's an encyclopedia of amazing visions. The temples I have seen were both ones of ancient civilizations and ones of the more recent Christian world. One of the more impressive architectural visions I have had was of a grand cathedral. The edifice extended up to the heavens, and its dominant color was emerald. I have heard of very similar visions from my informants. Several informants told me that looking with open eyes at the hall or the Maloca Amazonian hunt, in which the daime or ayahuasca session was taking place, the whole place transformed into a holy edifice. In more than one instance, the actual roof seemed to disappear and the visioned construction reaches up to the sky. Also reported by many informants are pyramids of all sorts, most either Egyptian or pre-Columbian. As exemplified in the above citations from Polari, basements, hidden passages, gates, and doors are all very common. These often have a secret, enchanting allure. I also want to read the section on cities and the section on works of art, and they're pretty quick, but here we go. This stuff is phenomenal. Cities. Entire cities may be seen as well. Here I focus on cities qua architectural complexes. Cities as a type of place are considered later in this survey. The cities seen in visions are usually exotic and most fabulous. Discussing the Amaringo paintings, Luna comments that about 1/3 of the visions presented contain cities. Their architecture is either diffusely Eastern, Chinese, Arabian, Indian, Tartarian, or futuristic, or both. They may be located in the underwater world or on another planet. My own experiences corroborate this general statement. Most of the cities I have seen seem to belong to ancient civilizations, whereas others were futuristic or magical, whose identity I could not determine. beyond the poles. The reports of my informants reveal the same pattern. The most impressive city I have seen was that described in the prologue, whose buildings were made of gold and precious stones. A couple of years after having had that early vision, I saw a similar description in Villoido in Genderson, 1994. Villoido, I don't know how to pronounce his name, but he's great. An informant who partook of ayahuasca with the Kashinahwawa Indians told me of seeing a city with strange circular architecture in a style she had never envisaged or heard of beforehand. A European partaking of the brew for the first time in a private urban context and who had no prior knowledge about ayahuasca at all reported seeing what he characterized as being the most bizarre architectures possible. Quote, the buildings did not have a single straight line to them, and some had animal features. They had mouths, yet they were buildings. Some of the buildings also moved. Similarly, Luna describes seeing a Hieronymus Bosch-like city with buildings of organic form, like huge plants or organs of a gigantic animal. Wow. So awesome. This stuff is just, it's great for artists. It's great for anyone, even to just read it and not take it. You can get a glimpse. You can take these stories, just take you somewhere. And because they've actually had, people have had them in their visions, it makes them even better. And when connecting them to our world and our trains of thought, the way we're going, the avenues we're all going with these ancient buildings and ancient civilizations that need to be rewritten, I think this lends some great stuff to it. So here we go, a little bit more right here in the last section called Works of Art. Works of art and artistic objects are very common both in my visions and in those of my informants. Items I have seen many times include pieces of sculpture, pieces of furniture, chandeliers, ceramics, and articles of gold, masks, carpets, tapestries, and rich fabrics, embroidery, jewelry, crowns, and scepters, as well as swords and shields. All these were also reported by my informants. The materials of which most of these items were made were gold, brass, gilded wood, crystal, precious stones, and fine textiles, most of which were white and or finely embroidered. Usually the items seemed to be exceedingly precious, and some seemed to be endowed with magical powers. Once I saw an entire exhibition of the works of arts and crafts of one specific culture. Manifestly, all the items I saw belonged to the same culture, one that I could not associate with any particular culture I'd ever known. Similar experiences were reported to me by two other persons. Artistic works are also frequently encountered in the buildings one sees. As described above, often these are embedded in the architectural structure itself. An example drawn from my own experience are elephants of white marble that served as pillars to the front hall of a palace. On several occasions I have seen ornate frescoes. In many cases these were in the Art Deco style. On one occasion they were of the Roman Pompeian style, and on another they were 18th century Baroque. As mentioned above, several informants have reported seeing all sorts of mosaics. Also common are carved wooden figures, engravings, and ornamental reliefs. Some of these were seen in conjunction with vehicles, notably sculptured prows of boats. Especially to be noted are items pertaining to religious rites, be they generic or associated with specific services or occasions. Those I have seen include the caduceus, the golden calf, the biblical choshen, a divination plaque with 12 precious stones used by the ancient Jewish high priest, and various idols. As noted above, objects endowed with magical powers are also common. One little section on musical instruments. Another special category of objects pertaining to culture is that of musical instruments. These are often associated with the hearing of music. By far, the most common instruments seen by me or reported by informants were trumpets. Also amazing. Its connection to Armageddon, the biblical connections, the different, or judgment, the different, just everything. The worlds seen here clearly need to be connected to the world that we're rediscovering and the world that they've tried to take from us. There is a clear connection here, and these guys could be getting, you could become a receiver and be accessing frequencies and these visions could be kind of coming in all different patterns, all different ways at all different times, and then maybe the ones who have done it, the shamans, they are able to control it a little bit and harness in on which time period they're entering or which place from beyond the poles, which civilization is sending them visions, and maybe even just beyond our spectrum of color. They could be right next to us at all time, beyond our spectrum of sight. It is totally possible. Anything is. It feels like it's so close. It always feels like, the difference between a dream and a vision, and it's something so magical and so ancient that, again, that's why they made it illegal in our more modern post-reset experience here. And that's why when it comes into effect and people see different things, they end up having a little bit of a renaissance or an enlightenment period. And it's also why they try to get the chemicals out there, make people addicted to chemicals so they don't discover the natural wonders, and so that future generations can't even fathom that people could experience these things, or maybe tap into those communicating with us from beyond this realm, beyond this dimension, in another whole realm of everything in existence, one that's so close to us yet so far away, but needs to be bridged. We need to have the gap. We need to extend the hand out and discover what there is to be discovered, because there is a lot. There is so much here. I'll maybe dive back into this book a little later. I haven't seen it in a long time. I just dug it up from my basement and figured I had to make a cool video because it's just so good. I mean, look at this stuff. Wow. And again, Pablo Amaringo, thank you so much. Your visions are eternal, and they help show people that there's not really anything to be afraid of, that it is something magical, something innate with us, something that connects to us, and something truly ancient, possibly a just absolute divine technology sent here so that we can realize our true divine selves once again, because we have to. We've gone so far astray, and if we're continuously going astray and we're completely ignoring or we're condemning the use of what led us to this point in the first place, then it's a sin. It's a sin on humanity, on nature, on everything. These things are here to jive with us, and for people that are daring enough to try them, Godspeed. For those of you who aren't, read the stories. It's good enough. And you have dreams. Remember, we all have dreams. That's our first kind of experience in this out-of-body experience, which we are all capable of. Again, imagine what our humanity and humans are capable of, because we only know a small potential. We're only capable of a small potential of our own human potential, and they are constantly working to batter us and make us forget. So, again, more incentive and fuel to help us remember. Bless you all. Have a great one.